Good afternoon and welcome to Across the Fence. I'm Jolie Whitney. The 2024 Vermont legislative session came to an end last month. Today we're going to discuss issues related to consumer protection that were brought up during this last session, learn their status, and what these changes mean for Vermonters. Joining me today to talk about consumer protection is Vermont's Attorney General Charity Clark. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me.
And over this session, the legislature passed something on data privacy, and the governor hasn't signed that as of this taping, but can you tell me what those protections are outlined in that bill?
Yes. First of all, I would say this has been a priority for me as Attorney General. I believe that our values of privacy and autonomy here in Vermont should be reflected in our laws relating to data privacy. And I was thrilled when the legislature took this up this session and passed it. It's a wonderful comprehensive bill that does a lot of things. There's a trend in the country to pass these laws, and let me kind of explain one of the reasons why these are important. Is when you think about commerce today, and we talk about consumer protection, we're talking about the marketplace and commerce. What you're talking about is data privacy, because so much of commerce occurs online. And when we go online, so much of that interaction involves our privacy. I'll give you an example. A lot of people don't realize that when you download an app on your phone and you're not paying money for that, what you're paying with is your data. That's how you're paying for Facebook, for example. And they either use that data to sell ads, like on Facebook, or they might actually just take your data and sell it on the data market to a data broker who buys and sells data. So that's one of the reasons why this law is really needed at this time. So I'm really, really excited that the legislature took this step to put meaningful steps in place to protect our data privacy, and especially the data privacy of children.
And if somebody has my data and they're trying to sell it, why would someone want it? What about my data is of value?
Well, there's a few reasons why this is important, besides the basic of it's our privacy
yeah,
and we deserve it. The first is, think about identity theft. Identity theft is a theft of your data that's then used to steal your identity. First, they need your data. They need, who are you? What are your account numbers, your social security number, things like that. It's also really important to protect the marketplace. The marketplace relies on consumers trusting the marketplace. And if they have an uneasy sense that their data is going to be stolen or their privacy is going to be violated, they're going to be less reluctant to engage in the marketplace. So when we protect consumers, we're protecting the marketplace. And that's another important step, I think, in making sure that our system is working well.
Absolutely. And other states have data privacy laws like Vermont does, but Vermont goes a step further than a lot of other states. Can you talk about kind of the emphasis on data privacy?
Mm-hmm. We are lucky we've had other states to kind of model our law after, and it's been helpful, I think, to industry who collects data and uses data to be able to do in Vermont what they might do in Connecticut or in Washington or Maryland and another state, so that they're not reinventing the wheel here in Vermont. It makes it easier for businesses to comply. But what we're trying to do basically with this law is make sure that people control their own data, that big businesses aren't controlling their data, they get to control their data. And we also put the special protections for children, which are incredibly important. I want to highlight, I'm really proud of the process that the legislature underwent. It took years to get to this point, so all the different kinds of voices were heard, and some of those voices were representing children specifically. This is an issue that I ran on, is protecting the data of children and taking this step with the data privacy law. And I want to highlight another piece that's important. So data minimization is a component of basic hygiene for data that's important, and it's codified in this law. So requiring companies to use data, not collect data they don't need, and use data with guardrails so that there isn't this proliferation of data that if there's a data breach, suddenly the company is vulnerable, and also, of course, the consumer whose data it is vulnerable. And the other kind of data that this law gets to is biometric data, which is data about us that we can't change. Things like our face, our DNA, our fingerprints, and that's in the bucket of sensitive data. So the law has to treat sensitive data in a unique way, and that's biometric data, account numbers, your driver's license number, your passport number, things like that.
Stuff you really don't want a stranger to see.
Yeah, right.
All right, and can you tell me about limited private right of action?
Yeah, so let's talk about what a private right of action is, first of all. A private right of action is basically the ability for an individual consumer to bring a lawsuit. So that's a private right of action. It kind of sounds fancy, but really that's what that is. And this law has a component of a private right of action for sensitive data, and it is only for those data holders who have a lot of consumers' data. So it's 100,000 consumers or more. So the small businesses have really been carved out of that. The smallest businesses are actually carved out of the whole law. The law only applies to businesses who have more than 25,000 consumers, in their system.
Okay, so does that mean that if somebody in a company with that, I could sue them if a company fit the description you were talking about?
Right, if your data privacy was violated under the law, you could bring a private right of action if those criteria were in place and it was sensitive data.
And are some businesses kind of concerned that that could impact them, businesses in Vermont, so to speak?
I think that, as I mentioned, this bill has been on a journey and has taken a lot of different forms. So as the bill stands now on the governor's desk, I don't think that there's a lot of businesses in Vermont who should be concerned because there's so many protections in place. Especially, when you think about, do they even collect sensitive data like biometric data or consumer health data, those types of things, and are they large enough that they would fall under this law?
And a component of this bill was to criminalize non-sexual deepfake pornography. Can you quickly describe what that is and if it impacts Vermont?
That is another issue related to kind of data and data privacy and the new technology. It was actually in a separate bill, but really, really important issue. We are so grateful the legislature heard our plea. So let's talk about what's a deep fake anyway. A deep fake is when someone uses your face, your audio, a picture, and makes it look like you're doing something you're not doing. So a couple of examples are, and you might remember some of these, I think there was a recent one where it was literally scammers trying to steal money from you, and they made a deep fake of Selena Gomez, I think it was, a celebrity who was supposedly either doing a giveaway or selling something, and it totally wasn't her. And they used technology to make it look like it was her, and it was very believable. This also happened to Tom Hanks, a dental company, made a deep fake of him like selling their product, and he had to put out a statement saying, hey, this isn't me. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. So that's one way in commerce where people are, stealing people's identities, if you will. They're using their faces to make deep fakes. But also in the political environment, that can happen as well. At the New Hampshire primary, someone made a deep fake of Joe Biden's voice saying Democrats don't vote. So that obviously is another issue. But the most common place where we see deep fakes is neither of those issue areas. It's with non-consensual deep fake pornography. And over 90% of that, it's a majority, and over 90% of them involve the faces of women or girls. And so this amendment to our revenge porn statute would address that issue, make clear that the revenge porn statute does apply to non-consensual deepfake pornography. And I should note, I read an article in the New York Times that called non-consensual deepfake pornography an epidemic among teen girls. And I'm really happy that at this moment in time that is something that the legislature has addressed, and really proud of the work that we could do in supporting the work of the legislature and passing that.
And this is kind of a new development through AI technology. Is this kind of a way of future-proofing Vermont's legislature or Vermont's laws to kind of protect younger people?
Yeah, there's kind of this old maxim, like legislatures can never keep up with technology, but we're going to try. And to the extent that my office can be a part of that, we will. We're trying to modernize, keep up with the times, and this is just an issue that we're seeing, and now it's clear that explicitly the revenge porn statute does include these non-consensual deepfake pornography. So really pleased by that development.
All right, so let's make a huge jump in topic and quickly talk about, you recently shared some information about combating greenwashing as a consumer. Yes. Can you tell us what that is and steps you can take to prevent getting swindled maybe?
Yes, so first of all, what's greenwashing? Greenwashing is when a company tells you their product is greener or more environmental than it really is, or that it's environmental and it's actually not, that it's not benefiting the environment, it's not better than another product when it comes to the environment. And I am going to once again quote the bumper sticker on my stepdad's car, which is Vermont was green before green was cool. And Vermonters really take seriously our choices when it comes to making purchases that are green and good for the environment. We live in a beautiful place where people enjoy the outdoors, and we're kind of used to having this value of environmentalism and caring for our natural resources, however that might look to us. And so we make green choices when we're shopping. So when a company is basically misrepresenting or lying to you in the marketplace saying, hey, my product is green or my product is greener than the other product, that's called greenwashing, and it's a violation of Vermont's Consumer Protection Act.
Okay, what are some buzzwords that you can keep an eye out for on products that might be an indicator of greenwashing?
I think a lot of it is just the comparison between one product and another product. So if they're saying that they're making claims that they're a percentage of, I don't know what, some claim, like they're asserting that they're better than someone else.
Environmentally friendly,
yeah,
or 100% recyclable, stuff like that.
Yeah, and these are all claims that could be true. If they're not, though, or if you are suspicious that they're not, please call my consumer assistance program, and I'll give you the number. It's 1-800-649-2424. Always a great place to start. You can ask questions. We have brought, I should note, a famous greenwashing case against the fossil fuel companies, like the major ones, because they lied to consumers, and part of that was a greenwashing campaign from the past 20 years where they tried to say their products were green and they're really not. They actually cause global warming. They're not helping global warming. So.
All right, before we wrap up, we have one more big topic, and that is ticket companies. And recently the DOJ has sued some of them. Is Vermont looking at following suit?
Well, we are certainly investigating Live Nation and Ticketmaster. We saw that lawsuit. Unfortunately, Vermont doesn't have a venue. So what we have done is we have set up a form on our website that folks can fill out if they are a consumer who has had a bad experience with Live Nation or Ticketmaster. We encourage folks to go to our website and fill that out, and that would be a way to help us with our investigation. At this point, we weren't able to join that lawsuit because we don't actually have a venue here that Live Nation associates with, so we weren't able to take that step. But we are investigating, we have been investigating, and we'll continue that. And we did just post that form for consumers. If Vermonters have a bad experience, I would encourage them to fill out that form.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Attorney General Clark.
Yeah, thank you.
And if you have a customer complaint, or a consumer complaint, I should say, or concerns about any of the topics we've discussed today, you can contact the Consumer Assistance Program, and that information is on your screen. That takes care of Across the Fence for today. My thanks to everyone working behind the scenes here at WCAX who makes this program possible. I'm Jolie Whitney. Have a good one.